Ew. There's like a whole dead person in there in terms of dust. Anyway, today we're gonna actually do some organic testing on whether or not cleaning an old graphics card can actually uplift some of the performance. Okay, so we're gonna kind of do a couple of different phases with this. I like to do this sort of testing, but the problem is like it takes a long time to be able to do this testing because we need the card to naturally just degrade, whether it be through tons of heat cycling when it comes to the thermal paste, the amount of dust buildup on the fans, as well as inside the cooler, as you can see here. And this is just an old school GTX 980, which goes all the way back to what, 2013, I think 2013, somewhere in there. So we're over 10 years old at this point. This is a card that belonged to Phil and it got kicked around with various friends and stuff. And I think Phil upgraded his friend's GPU, which is why he ended up with this back now. So now we can do some organic testing. But the progression here is we're gonna try a couple of different things. One, we're gonna see whether or not the plugged up heat sink is gonna cause any effect on temperatures, which can have effect on boost clocks, which have an effect on overall performance. Then we're gonna, after we clean that, we're gonna move on to thermal paste and repaste it. So we're gonna see how much of a difference we had regarding baseline versus just cleaning the heatsink versus repasting it. The other thing too is the 980 had GPU boost, like the standard GPU boost in there, not GPU boost 2.0 yet, I don't think. I think 2.0 came at the 10 series. So this should see some improvements technically with getting the temperatures a bit lower, but first we gotta get some baselines. So I'm using MSI Afterburner to monitor our temperatures and stuff. That's funny, the temps will go anywhere from like 45 to 48 C at idle, even though the fans are at 27% RPM. We're gonna leave the stock fan curve. A lot of the times you can get some huge improvement by just playing around with the fan curve on your GPU, and this works for any GPU, not just a 980 or a 1080 or an NVIDIA GPU even. Also too, going into the driver here, and I'm gonna change a couple of things here. Texture quality, we're gonna set to high performance, and then power mode, we're gonna set from optimal power to prefer maximum power. The reason for that is I'm trying to just set the card as static as possible in terms of seeing where its performance is gonna land. Fun fact, and spoiler, it's gonna suck because the card is really old, 11 years old. So we are going to be seeing some numbers here that are just absolutely not a lot of fun. I'm gonna be running regular Firestrike. I actually have to install this real quick. That shows how long it's been since I've tested this particular test. But it is an appropriate test from that particular era. It's been so long since I've seen the CPU test. It's 185 FPS on the CPU test. 1400K, that's overclocked. It's been a long time since I've run this test. That means the combined will suck because the CPU will just be waiting on the GPU. It'll probably still be, I'm gonna make a guess, 980, 23 FPS. 22.9. 21.5, it slows down, that speeds up at the end. I've just run this test so much throughout the years. I mean, years of experience of watching a stupid, repetitive thing. 12,707 graphics score and a 53,520 physics score and a combined score of 4753. So let's take a look at this right here. Our temperature maxed out at 84. It only spiked it for like the start of the test and then would drop down. The priority is set to power limit and then temp is set to 80. So technically we're shooting above that temp limit. So if the temp limit is currently set to 80 and it's going to 84, means that we could already be seeing some temperature issues here initially. So, okay, so all I did right now was increase our temp limit and our power limit and we're getting 1240. But our temperature is currently at 79, 81, 80, 81, 80. So 1240, that is 120 megahertz, or just a little more than 10% of an additional boost clock without even overclocking it, just by allowing the temp limit or the power limit to go up. So I'm wondering real quick how much of that's gonna be power limit. It's still at 1240. And our power limit now, as you can see, is back to 100. So we didn't gain any additional clock by allowing power limit to go up. We gained it, I think, by having the power or the temperature limit go higher. Because look, we're already at 83, 84, 85, 86. So let's slow the clock down, or the fan down, like way down. 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. Man, this reminds me of like Fermi, 90 right there. Look at the clock, it's still 1228. Whoa. Okay, the GPU just went into save myself mode. Because it hit the max limit of 91. So, okay, I now know we have additional power available to us that we don't even need, and we have more clocks available to us. So now we need to see, is the temperature rising because the thermal paste is old and cracked and hard and looks like a dry lake bed? Or is it because of the fact that our tiny little heatsink has caked up? I mean, look at the fan blades. Those are supposed to be black, not that color, okay? So anyway, I need to cool the card down before I take it off. There's a lot of junk down in there on the fan blades. That is disgusting. That's gonna obviously affect the way that it can capture air. Also, too, I wanna point out, you guys might have noticed there's no ad in this video. It's brought to you by our JayzTwoCents gaming mat and our melting connector shirt. So if you feel inclined, head over to jayztwocents.com and you can see what merch we have available. We're working on a new spring summer line coming out here with some new designs and stuff. But anyway, they also make great work surfaces for things like this, taking apart our graphics card and stuff. So even if you're not using it necessarily as like a gaming mat under your mouse and a keyboard, they make a great soft surface to work on anything like electronic wise and stuff. And they clean up pretty easily. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead now and just sort of douse that with alcohol to try and loosen up whatever is down in there. I feel like I need something smaller than this even, because that is just chunky. If you wanna know how far we've come, this is the heatsink right here, just this part. And it only really sits on top of the VRMs and the, ew. Okay, it really just sits on top of the VRMs and the RAM. That's a cooler for a 4090. Right there, the whole freaking thing. So just to kind of show you a comparison of over time. So I need to get creative on how I'm gonna get down in here. Oh, pieces of, ew. Pieces of it were flying out. Ew, pieces of whatever that is. Also too, you'll notice I'm holding the fan with my finger. For the same reason we showed spinning up a motherboard fan. This happens. We don't want this spinning and creating voltage, even though it won't really hurt anything, but still, I don't want to overspin the bearing. Plus it's old. All right, so it's not the prettiest. I mean, I don't think we're ever gonna get this to be perfectly clean unless we did like a full disassembly on it. I'm trying to get the bristles up in the fan blades like that. Dude, if he vaped near this would be like a sticky mess. Like Snoop Dogg said it best, sticky, icky, icky. Okay, so I got as much dust out of the blades as I could. And here's the thing that's important about dust accumulation on this. You'll notice there's some down here in the corner I can't get out. Because the air only escapes right here, this little bit. So the cooler designs were not great. They really were not great. Let's see if that alone improved anything. I'd be shocked if it did, but let's just see. Okay, so I don't have the old scores up yet, but I'm just looking at the results here. Max temp was 83. So 1 degree is not gonna make any difference. Our clock speeds were still locked at like that 1126 number we already saw, but look how they start off. They try to go higher at 1215, and they go, nope, we just don't have the temp for it. Okay, let's go ahead and compare our results. They should be literally within margin of error, to be honest. 1267 and 1229. So we technically are lower, but again, that's margin of error. Our graphics score, 12606 versus 12707. Our physics score is actually higher, 55710 versus 53520. But our combined score, 5776 versus 4776 versus 4753. So again, all complete margin of error. What I love is how it somehow is telling us we have a 5 FPS discrepancy between Battlefield 5 1440 on our first test was 45 plus, and this is now 40 plus, but these numbers are not that far different. Like the 55,000 versus the 53,000 on the CPU score, that makes sense, because the CPU, I ran this right away. There probably could be some stuff going in the background loading or whatever. That's normal. All right, time to tear this sucker down and see what's going on with that thermal paste. I have a feeling it's gonna look like a dry lake bed. It's already stripped, look. Well, we're gonna start with that one, because if I can't get past that one for some reason, it's like literally rounded out.
It's loose.
Okay. Actually, all these screws feel really loose. Really loose. And that's a bad thing, because if they're loose around the GPU at all, that means we're gonna have bad contact. It's not acting like it had bad contact, but these are way looser than I would expect, honestly. Maybe. I love the Jeez. Okay, so when you separate it, you wanna be careful because of the fan wires and stuff. Oh my God. Okay, first of all, I'll show you what I see in a second. You want to be careful because you want to rip up the thermal pads, although a lot of these look misaligned already. The amount of dust on the thermal pads, and what thermal paste? Did you repaste this?
Huh?
Did you repaste this ever?
Yeah, like before.
Did you forget to put the paste on it?
Yeah, I was on a kick where I was using Gillard for everything, and I've heard that does have pretty bad pump out. Clearly.
There's also a whole RAM pad missing. So you got one RAM pad there, but 2 RAM sticks or RAM chips here.
Yeah, where did it go?
Not back on the card when it was taken apart. This has got grosser than I thought it was going to be honest. In like a good way, because this is probably what a 10-year-old card for most people would look like when they open it up. The amount of dust just has a way of getting everywhere.
That paste is blowing my mind though. Look at how it's all around the die now.
Yep.
Instead of on the die.
Oh, I see it. There's a reason why I only use KPX, and it's not because I'm a Kingpin fanboy. It's because the formulation of it is awesome, that it stays liquidy. It doesn't squish out like this. That's really hard in there too. I'm not even gonna try and scrape that out because I don't have to. Okay, that's good, but now we gotta figure out what we're gonna do about that RAM pad that's missing. Is I'm gonna build one. So I'm just gonna borrow some from other pads. I don't have a choice really. Some of it touching is better than none, honestly. Not ideal, but gets the job done. And I'm gonna transfer these guys over now because they were not lined up. I'm not even sure that they were touching in the right spot. Okay, so everything in the reverse. I expect there to be a fair amount of improvement now because I have a feeling that's why the die temperature was climbing so fast. When I slowed down the fan, how fast it started to, I almost said fastly, how fastly it started to rise. Because I thought that was a little quick, but I now understand why. I would like to point out the idle temps are now 35 and not 50. So there's that. Let's go ahead now, start 3D mark, and let's start again. Ooh, it came up 2 degrees. I guess I failed. I think we're gonna...
Oh, 3 degrees.
Ooh. Yeah, now we'll see whether or not we get an actual tangible improvement here just by repasting and touching nothing else. It's important to reiterate, and I know I've said this a few times, these are out-of-the-box settings. Out-of-the-box fan curve, NVIDIA's heavy bias towards acoustics rather than cooling. On the 90 series and the 1000 series cards, they were very heavily biased towards noise optimization rather than cooling optimization. So I think we're gonna see improvements here. 12,594, it's still like the same in terms of our combined. Our graphics score came up quite a bit though, 13,216. That's a tangible improvement. 13,216 in the graphics from a 12,707. And our physics score is back up. Look at our combined score, 4753. Up to a 5,010, and a 12,067 up to a 12,594. Now remember, I have not played with the fan curves, I have not touched the sliders, I have not touched the power limit. This is just thermal paste and cleaning. Could also be, I doubt the memory was getting hot, to be honest. But I think the loose screws on the back was meaning bad tension for the thermal pads on the SMC or the SOCs and stuff, that it's responsible for cooling, as well as the RAM, that one RAM having no pad on it at all, coupled by the better thermal paste, now good tension. We have seen a pretty significant improvement here. The max it got was 71. 71. So that tells you right there already. The thermal paste on this, the Gellid on here. So it's a little bit of a skewed test because I wanted to know like what would happen if we used, like if it was an OEM card, OEM paste, 10 years later, 9 years later, whatever it is. But as you can see, even with using the Gellid on here, which Phil was talking about the fact that it was even a known issue with the Gellid paste that it would sort of like pump out, or that means over time with all the pressure on it, as it gets heated and liquefied, that it would get real thin and then run out the sides because of the tension. So that's why eventually you saw there was no thermal paste left. It all squished out and basically made a thermal paste moat around the die. Good thermal paste doesn't do that. So that's why I like to use the KPX. It stays liquidy, but doesn't pump out, and it gives us really good transfer. So as we can see now, our clock's 11:26. The low clock right now is when I'm in the menu. In the test, it jumped up to the 1200s, mid 1200s. So you saw before it tried, and then that instant spike in temperature because of the poor thermal paste conductivity dropped the temps or the clocks right back down to base. So these are base clocks. 1126 is our base clock. These are our GPU boost clocks pushing it into the 1200s. But look at that, during the CPU test, locked at 1253. I don't even think upping our fan curve would help at all right now, because it's so far below its limit. But what I want to do now is I want to see by giving us more power limit, and I can't do voltage, like voltage does nothing, it just goes back down, right? But I want to see now, can I go like an extra 100 on the clock? I'll be honest, I cannot remember what kind of numbers I could get out of this. Ooh, it was at 1352. That's a pretty big jump. 13,547, we just gained 1,000 points. And to be honest, I have no idea how far I could push this. And our max temp was 61. 61. Oh, come on, yeah! 1502. Let's see.
Nice.
We'll go 300 or instant crash. Yep, instant crash. Okay, we'll end it right there. This wasn't about overclocking the 4090. This was about
4090.
or 980. This is about seeing whether or not you might be leaving some performance, significant performance on the table if you have old hardware that you have not looked at cleaning or whatever. So there you go, guys. Take that for what it is. Again, we'd love your support with the JC Cent store with our mats and our t-shirts and mugs and other things that are available on there. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you've learned something today. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.